recording.
Guys, welcome to Slovenia once again. The last time you were here, you were still presenting the album Cosmogenesis, and now you have the new album out. Can you say a little bit what hides behind the concept of the album? What is it about? How come you choose to speak about the connection, the spiritual connection between the nature and human and stuff like that?
Your question is related to the
Omnivium.
Yes.
Omnivium album, the concept by the... actually the concept is based on the novel by Friedrich Schelling you just mentioned. And we have a 4-album concept that started with Cosmogenesis, with the beginning of university existence, whatever you will call it. And the second out of that concept is Omnivium, which is based on the evolution, and album number 3 and 4 we are actually discussing. Well, it's just a long-term concept like all of these old prog death metal bands did, so actually nobody, so we have that idea actually from old prog rock bands.
Considering that you choose a different thematics for every album, is it also the way you approach the music, how you created the melodies, everything that you use, is it also different regarding to the concept that you used at the time?
I guess that's just naturally. So in the first place there's always the music, and then the lyric concept is related on that. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, mine too, but I think that the approach was a little bit different than last time. Because last time when we did Cosmogenesis, the lineup of the band was not together for very long, like only a couple of months, I think 3 or 4 months or something, until we started recording Cosmogenesis. So what happened back then was that each of us had like different songs written, and basically everyone brought like was ready with new songs we brought to the band, and then we just like adjusted them a little bit so they seemed like they fit together, you know. And this time I think it was very different, that we started to write songs together more than last time. Like less individual songs, but more like songs where everyone contributes parts to, and which we work out together. I think it's a very different approach to the last record.
Yeah, I guess that way the whole album is more mature. Most of the songs are written as a collective, as Christian mentioned. So you cannot say this and this riff was written by that and that different person from the band. It's not possible. If you just listen to the opener, Septuagint, it's, I guess, that song where everybody plays the same work.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody like has the same amount of riffs in that song, I guess.
And it's unbelievable. You cannot say, okay, the intro was written by Christian Münzner, the outro was by Hans Bossner, whatever. It's not possible.
Exactly.
It's just a collective.
And I think the interesting thing is also, like on the last record, you could tell, okay, that's a Stefan song, that's a Chris song, that's a Hannes song, and now we would have riffs where you would say, hey, that sounds like a Stefan riff, but then in the end it's like, for Hannes, me, or the other way around, you would say, hey, that sounds like a Chris riff, but then it was by Stefan or something. So actually, like, we all influenced each other, like on the last record, and we hope that that led to more of an individual style on the new album.
So this is the only innovation that you've been using for the new album, or are there some also musical innovations used?
Oh, there are definitely some musical innovations. I mean, on the last record we had, for example, 2 songs where we used some 7-string guitars. This time we brought this more and more into the focus, so the whole scales are a little bit different.
Yeah, everything is like based on 7-string guitars, like every song. Also, it doesn't really always sound like 7 strings, because we use them quite differently. We don't use them for like the low sugar stuff. It's more like for wide intervallic stuff you couldn't do on a 6-string guitar. And so the riffs ended up being quite different to the ones on the last record.
And the acoustic guitar is more present, and like the whole musical freedom is a little bit bigger than the last time. Last time we had that approach to write an album where we combine some old school early tech death metal from the bands Atheist, Cynic, Death. I guess those influences are quite obvious. And this time we tend to do more and more go into the direction of our own signature sound. At least we try to elaborate our own sound. And because of that we try to bring in more and more different influences. Like Christian mentioned, those different intervallic scales. The vocal broad is way more different. And I guess we added some clean choirs. We added the regular standard death black metal vocals. Well, whatever you can imagine, vocoders. whatever. We just try to make a song as good as possible. It doesn't need to be technical or need to be have a new technique or whatever. It just has to be a good song. That's the main focus.
Yeah. And one thing also, I think what's very different to the last album is the whole vibe. I think the music sounds a lot darker this time than the last record. So the last record was a little bit more, had more of a positive feeling to it, while the new one is very dark and at least for the most part of it, I think.
I think so. Yeah, the neoclassical influences are a little bit more present this time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned that you became like a more cohesive collective, much more like a one entity and not separate members. And one would presume that now only Obscura would be the main focus, but every one of you is like busy with some other bands. You with Tulkandra, you with solo projects and working with Mr. Jarzenbeck. Hannes has a DVD out and
playing for Blooded Science.
Yeah, and the bassist is playing with Pestilence now. How come this happened in a way that it's not like just one unit working on Obscura, but you guys taking time to also...
What I think is very important there is if you want to work in a band, you have to take your ego out of the band for a little bit, because you have to see the collective of it, and what you do has to be the best for the complete sound of it. You shouldn't try to put your own instrument or your own person like in focus, you know, it has to be like a collective thing. And if we allow us the freedom to do other projects, or we can use other ideas which we can't use in Obscura, that makes it a lot more comfortable then to play in Obscura, because then you can say, okay, now I can work more on my role as a band guy here, because I have other options to bring in stuff that I can't do in this group. So, and I think that's very, very healthy for the songwriting process.
Yeah, of course, so everything is in balance. I mean, if you have, and definitely, I'm pretty sure everybody who's playing in a band has ideas written or recorded that you cannot use in that band. The same as Obscura. So, as Christian is playing weird scales I don't understand, and don't like vocals. He's doing that solo record. I love black metal, so I do my I play in my second band, Tulkandra. But the most important thing is, besides to keep everything in balance, that the main band Obscura is always.
Yep, that's always the main priority.
Yeah, it has to be the priority, and everything else has to be behind it.
And how do you guys organize yourself? Does it ever come the conflict of the time schedules, like presenting a solo album at that place in Germany and you having a Tulkandra gig at other, and then somebody calls you, can Obscura play?
Well, Obscura always, as Stefan said, has to have priority. So you can't say, okay, I have to do a clinic now, so I can't play an Obscura show, you know, because actually Obscura has to be the main thing. And I think so that's why everything else is put at the back. So we only do the other stuff if we really have the time for it. We don't have to cut time off the Obscura schedule.
Yeah, but I think most of the shows, and especially tours, they're planned and organized up front to 4 or 5 months in advance. So usually we have a good time to plan everything. Also the other project and whatever you do. Like, we have to work besides music, so everything has to be planned. And I cannot remember that there was a show on short notice within 3 or 4 weeks before the show actually happened. So it's not a problem.
Okay, and the non-musical question, you guys come from Germany, which is, some say, economically still pretty powerful and still pretty stable country. How do you perceive the rest of the Europe while like touring through some countries that seem to have big financial or social problems now, or some extremist stuff going on?
I think what I always find, like in countries which are not as stable in terms of like economy and stuff, that the people enjoy the shows more, because it's something more special. Like in Germany, you have cities you can see a show like 5 days a week, and people are like oversaturated. So you play a show and people don't really appreciate it because it's nothing special for them anymore. Because if they miss today's show, they catch tomorrow's. And I think people played Romania last year, for example, which is like a really poor country, but people were really thankful and really happy at the show, and they were a lot more into it than you would like experience in a more rich country, I think. So for me personally, I really like playing those countries a lot.
In general, I would say I play in every country, but everywhere you go a little bit more south. And if you see all of the countries in the south, like Portugal, Spain, Italy and all of the Balkan regions are a little bit poorer, but I think people are more satisfied with what they have. You mentioned Germany. You said the economic situation is a little bit more powerful, but if you're not satisfied with what you have, and that's exactly in Germany the fact, because everybody's just into his status symbols. Everybody tries to have the biggest car and the more clean house than the neighbor has, but behind the walls everything is more or less a ruin. So it's completely different. For example, in Italy, I got the intention. Well, it's more important what's inside the house instead of outside.
Exactly. It's like also like in Germany, you get like a good reputation if you can afford a lot of expensive stuff. Like people have high regards for a guy who's driving a big car, for example. But if you, for example, you can play an instrument well or you can write a good song, people don't really appreciate that. As long as you don't make money with it. And that's very different if you go to other cultures and other countries, because there people have a different understanding of value. So the capability to play an instrument or to write music, whatever, has a much higher value, I think, in those countries, because money is not the main focus in life for those people. And that's what I prefer in those countries, actually.
Okay guys, we would like to say thank you for taking your time.